Hello, welcome to LLG's Random But Real podcast, where you'll hear conversations about any and all things random with an entree, not a side dish, of mental health advocacy. I use my performance, communication, and literary art skills to bring awareness about mental health and other topics. Therefore, whether I'm singing, speaking, or writing, it is my desire that my words will be melodic, just like music to your ears. Welcome to LLG. That's me, Lisa L. Gilliam's Random But Real podcast. Please note, any comments made on this LLG Random But Real podcast by myself, Lisa One Singing Lady Gilliam, or my guests are our own views. They are not to be made or determine an actual professional or in lieu of an actual professional. If you relate to any of the topics, please seek professional help. Contact a therapist, a psychologist, any other mental health professional, or if it's an emergency, please call 911. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of LLG for Real. Today, I am excited to a guest that I've known for a few years now. Have been able, I've had the pleasure of working with we try to get a little bit of feedback on my side. So we're going to try to get that together. But you all know, sometimes I have technical on this show. But I'd like to welcome Restorative Justice Practitioner here, Robin.
Good afternoon, or good morning. It's 11 o'clock, so good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am doing wonderful.
Well, that is awesome. For the listeners who may not know, this podcast, excuse me, I try to deal with different topics, but we also deal with mental health. I'm a mental health advocate, and so it's important for me to understand, as Danya, one of my Stigma Breakers Collective members, says, mental health affects every area of our lives. And so I don't think a lot of times people put the two together with just like everyday things or the things that are happening in the world. And so we try to bring enlightenment to that and talk about different topics. I was blessed to take a part in a restorative circle years ago when I worked for a former agency. Shout out to Tri-County Youth Services Bureau of Waldorf, Maryland. And it was so transformative. And so when my instructional specialist, again, another shout out to Mrs. Simone Malloy, asked me to be the restorative site coordinator in my current school, which is now a program, I saw a lot of the similarities to counseling, which I used to do. And then just because of the experience, I was excited to be a part. And I've learned so much from Robin and a lot of the trainings that she's giving and those that she has suggested. And so I just thought it would be very interesting. I wish everybody in the world could embark on restorative practices, restorative justice. And so I just thought this would be another way to spread the word. So, Robin, how did you get started in that field?
Oh, wow. About 10 years ago, exactly 10 to 11 years ago, they started changing the federal guidelines around discipline.
Mhm.
And they were acknowledging that suspension does not work when we are trying to help young people to manage their behaviors. And as a result of zero tolerance, suspension was what everybody went to. So in 2012, 2013, the federal guidelines changed and basically said you have to find another way to inappropriate behaviors with young people. So, of course, when they started reducing suspensions, classroom, and I was impacted by that, and I spoke up. I
Okay.
said, "What are we supposed to be doing with the children that don't know how to behave?"
Right.
Uh, Definitely a teacher advocate, student advocate as well. But at this time, I was with I said, we got to do this. We got to fight this. So, you know what they say about the squeaky wheel?
Mm-hmm.
The president at the time said, Robin McNair, you be the chair for the discipline committee. And your goal is to look through the student code of conduct and see where areas are and areas that are adversarial to educators and come back and give us a report. So when I started with the committee, I realized there was something in the student code of conduct that said restorative practices. And of course, no one knew what it was. So moving forward, I sought out what this was. I went to a and as you said, the first time you sat in a circle, it was very transformative for you. And when I went to this summit and sat in this circle, I said, oh my goodness, my whole mentality changed. I
Right.
said, this is what our students need. Because I started to feel heard, I started to feel listened to. And it took me back to my elementary days where I taught elementary. And I said, I remember doing this with young people when I was teaching fifth grade.
Okay.
So I advocating for putting suspensions back and started advocating for restorative practices. So
Okay.
that is how I got started in this work.
Wow. Well, that's definitely a story for you, but that's good. I personally know that you make an impact. And more people are I'm using air quotes buying into restorative practices. I'm using that because I understand it is a way of life. It's not just a program or even a easy fix. Changing mindset when you always be communicative, because that's what I even grew up before when I was a teacher, even when I was a student, that's what it was. And people often feel like if you're not getting punished, i.e.,
Mhm.
suspended, then you're not the child doesn't learn the lesson. What would you say to those people?
So the question is the students are learning something. The
Hmm.
question becomes excuse me, what are they learning? So
Okay.
when you're constantly suspending and you're punishing, basically you are giving something harmful as a result of something harmful that happened. So
Hmm.
what students learn from this is what happens, you have to respond with something else that's harmful. So my
Hmm.
question to those people who feel that punishment is the way to go, how long have we been punishing and has that shifted the way the world responds to people who make mistakes?
Mm. Okay.
And if it's not for the better, then why are we continuing to punish?
To be defeated. Okay.
Mhm.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, I know just in having conversations, sometimes I feel like it's pulling teeth, but I remember like I said, I wasn't always restorative.
Yeah.
I'm still learning to become more restorative. Like it is a way of life. It's a practice. It's a daily practice, but it's such a push and pull I've seen with
Mhm.
that change. I think that in general, not just in this area, but in life, so many of us are used to staying the same, and it's what we know. It's what's comfortable. Um, how do you personally deal with that resistance that often comes with the mindset change of becoming more restorative?
Wow. So it's funny that you asked this question, Lisa, because just last week with a colleague who did not agree around the premise that restorative practices or being restorative is who you are.
Mhm,
And many people can the processes. But the question becomes, are you just doing the processes without the or the value system that
mhm.
comes with believing these young people have potential
Right.
to do better, to be better, to transform, to shift? And if you don't have that mindset and you're going in trying to change young people, then you're not being restorative.
Mm.
So I always stand in a position where I agree to disagree. But for me, as a student of restorative justice, as a person, as you say, single day, I'm learning every single day. I make the conscious effort to ensure that when I'm entering, especially if they do something that I feel may, touch me the wrong way or may be harmful to someone else, how am I
Mhm.
responding to them in a way that allows them to be seen, to be heard, and to be understood, while continuing to hold them to the best that they can be eventually.
Right.
And that takes, I mean, you
Yeah.
have to shift your mindset to stand in front of somebody who's what, cursing you out, stand in front of
Yeah.
somebody who, trying to have power over you.
Mhm.
It,
Yeah.
it, it takes a mindset to be able to say, you know what? It's not about me.
Right.
It's not my job. It's not my job to change their behavior. It's my job to help transform their pain, their harm, the harm that they're causing.
Right.
And when you take that type of mindset, then you can respond in a way that honors that person for who they are as a.
Yep, it's definitely a everyday, everyday walk. That's for sure. And
Mhm.
um, there was plenty of times where I honestly got frustrated, and I wasn't as restorative in my response. And um, just learning to that to me is a part of just being okay with learning how to change. I'm
Mhm.
okay with if I didn't, do something with dignity, mutual concern, or respect, with saying, what, I apologize for that. I'm trying to get it better. I try to be present and honest in the moment. Mindfulness has a lot of connection with restorative practices, restorative justice as well, and just being open about whatever it is that I'm feeling. One of the things that
Mhm.
I've seen or heard or have discussed with others is that a lot of our scholars, well, I'll start with the adults. A lot of the adults,
Okay.
so therefore they don't know how to model that for a child. And so them cutting me out because it's happened to me, and I have to,
Mhm.
sometimes, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say it doesn't bother me, but like you said, I know it's not them, it's the other stuff. So I try to, pull them to the side and establish relationships with them, let them know I'm there. They know that I am more of a disciplinarian. I will be honest, meaning as far as following the boundaries, following the rules, supposed to be in class, go to class, like that type of thing. But I also want to
Mhm.
know why are you in college? What's going on? Why did you decide to work out? What was happening? Just being present with them as well. And sometimes I'll give them a break. I had call the teacher, let them know they're coming to my office. Because the classroom was too hot or was too many people. But sometimes I realize that they're just saying things just to say things. How do you differentiate what's being said and what's been from action?
Hmm. So I was listening to you when you said, you know, it's not that what they say to you or how they act does not bother you, because it does. And
What? Oh, I'm sorry.
that's
Oh, you
the
said, oh, yeah, I did. Got you. Got you. Yeah. I'm
yeah,
sorry. I
mhm.
misunderstood.
And that's the piece. We're all human,
Mhm, mhm.
and we show up as our human selves all the time.
Right.
So knowing that, the way you're speaking to me is not acceptable for me.
Mhm,
Speak to me in a tone that is respectful and in a tone that's going to allow me to respond to what you're saying to
mhm,
me.
mhm.
That can be very challenging. And as you said, when you grow up, oftentimes we with comments made to us that were harmful, but we couldn't say anything because we were children.
Right.
So
Right.
and we now have this power voice. Here's another child coming to me, talking to me out the left side of their mouth. I'm going to
Mhm,
adult to
mhm.
shut you down as a child.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that we're wrong. that just means that that is how we have learned
Mhm.
to respond because of how we were, you know, exposed to
Okay.
different situations as children.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
when you have a young person to and they're saying one thing but their actions are saying something different,
Mhm.
understanding that we have no control over that,
Right.
but really, maybe coming back at another time to address it. Um, I can give you a perfect example. To some of the campuses, I'm talking to young people. I'm calling them, come back, come here. What are you doing? And
Mhm.
they're, saying one thing like I'm going to class, but they're going the other way. And I said, okay, I'm not gonna take on this battle. I'm gonna let
Right.
them go, but I'm gonna see them again.
Mhm.
And usually when they're coming back from where they should not have been, I'm gonna stop. So, let me talk to you for a minute. So
Yeah.
for me, the key is always, you know what? It's not about you. It's not about you. And I have to tell myself that all the time, Lisa, because for me,
Mhm.
I'm like, look, I need you all to just listen to what I say, comply with what I say, and everything's gonna be kumbaya.
Right.
But that's skills that you learn and that you embed within yourself. Come those restorative skills have to be put into play
Mhm.
because that's not works when young people are at their height, when young people are in a place of pain and they haven't learned how to regulate that pain.
Right.
You know, I'm gonna say them again, and I'm not gonna let this go because one of the misconceptions practices is that there are no consequences, that we just let
Mhm.
young people do what they want to do, that we allow them to just feel what they feel and talking through it and all this, soft, gushy stuff. And that is totally the opposite.
Right.
What this work does, it holds
Mhm.
because you have these expectations, but you also understand that sometimes they're not going to reach the expectations because of whatever reason.
Right.
You still hold them to the expectations, but you don't let go of the fact they're responding in their human way,
Right.
but you
Right.
still hold them to those expectations. And because this happened, you have to be held accountable. So, what can we do to rectify this situation? Because you're late for class. And now you're coming back 15 minutes later. You just missed that teacher's class. So, what are we going to do about that?
Right.
You kind of give that onus to them because when
Mhm.
we suspend, we're still staying in control, and they accountability because okay, well they just suspended me. Oh well, so that means nothing to them. But when you put the onus back on them to make them start to reflect and to think about how their actions have impacted someone else, that's when you
Right.
get to the heart. That's when you get to the heart.
No, and it's so much easier to do that once relationships have been established, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that unfortunately, you're right. Usually we do see them again, but there's been a few times, especially this year, where
Mm-hmm.
whatever incident led to them not even being able to be in the building anymore.
Yeah.
And so many have slipped through the cracks because of that. And I tried to talk to them, because I have the pleasure of interviewing all of the scholars that come into the building initially.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that I'm a first contact, but because when they get in there, they're not, I know deep down they love me. Some of them tell me, but they'll also cuss me out and fight and all the other stuff too.
Yeah.
Or not listen. And I understand that. It's amazing to me how many of them are so different in the interview or the enrollment as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to when their parents are there, as opposed to they are when they're in school or in
Yeah.
the program. And sometimes I wonder, I mean, I'm trying to think of other ways that I can get the parents even more involved because I don't know that they really know what their child is doing when they're in our um, you know, eyesight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I just think that, I don't think that all the phone calls should be negative phone calls. I think they should also be positive ones too. That helps establish a relationship with the parents and makes them want to trust or listen to the staff more, when it's not always negative. But I can't say that it hasn't been a challenge over the years, 'cause it has.
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
it has. Lisa, I can definitely agree with you because we have had more incidences this year with behaviors where young people had to be put up for expulsion, suspended
Mhm.
for long periods of time,
Mhm.
and then with that happening, as a result of, the particular incidents that a person will say, well, see that restorative practice stuff don't work. That don't work. But what you have to understand is that these building, in your case, high school with what, 15, 16, 17 years
Right.
in their communities, in their home,
Mhm.
in their life experiences. So the restorative practice is going to come in and shift all of that mire that has been cultivated, um, is unrealistic. Restorative
Mhm.
practices is not a cure for the embedded um, trauma that young people have gone through.
Right.
Young people come in with a back, and some young people were able to get through to them, and they take out the stuff out of their backpack, and now their backpack is lighter. I think what happens as a society, as a district, is that we don't uh, work on the uh, preventative pieces enough
Okay.
when they're younger, before they even get to our settings. We don't have the time to provide the extra help, the extra support that's needed. You can't take a person from a base school who's had a conflict, a detrimental conflict with another person from, and then bring them into an environment
Mhm.
which you consider to be the alternative environment, the smaller environment where they can thrive their best. But you haven't addressed this detrimental incident that took place between these two young people before they came to the alternative setting.
Right.
And then when that same behavior shows up, then we want to blame the alternative. What have you done? Did you do any restorative practices with them? No. We we have things in place, already in place in our schools. But what are you doing? And when I say you, I mean the district, before you put them together again in another space. You have
Right.
the situation.
So do you
So
think that that could happen? I'm sorry when you just said that. The restorative, like, what if a circle happened at the meeting or before the meeting? Do you think that
yeah,
would be more beneficial?
yeah, I think it could happen because like when you do these intakes, when you do these interviews, oftentimes we show up as our best self in these interviews and we say all the things that we know, you want to hear.
Mhm.
That's just human. And children are going to do it too. But once again, when they're in the space, that other stuff starts to come out because
Mhm.
they're now interacting with other people and they're doing.
Right.
So one of the things that I proposed a couple of years ago was before they eat the alternative setting, that you have what we call a reintegration circle, or
Mhm.
an intense support circle. Down before the young person even comes into the setting with the young person, the parents or the guardians, the families, the educators in the building whom that young person may have to interact with. You bring them together and you start, look, this is what happened. How are you, wanting to be different? What do you need to quote unquote be different? And
Mhm.
who's going to be responsible for helping you through these, particular. I remember when a young person came back into the high school that I was teaching, and he was incarcerated 6 months. He came back, and we did an intensive integration, reintegration circle with him, where we set up a whole plan. We had his favorite teacher there. We had one of his best friends there. We had his administrator there. I was there. And we kind of went through questions around, okay, why were you gone for this time? He had to admit the fact he was locked up for what he
Mhm.
did. So that came out of his mouth.
Mhm.
We talked about what he needed, you know, it's written down. Everybody in the circle got a copy. And we check back in every 2 weeks with this young person.
Okay.
Would not let him off the hook. Miss McNair, you need to go talk to such and such because I see he's not going to class. Okay, thanks for letting me know.
Mhm.
No, I didn't. I waited until we came back into the space and said, okay, tell me how was your week? So when you are that invested
Mhm.
in them, there's a possibility to help them to start making that shift in how to be better.
Right. Yeah. That I wish that they would see it that way prior
Yeah.
to, because it's like even trying to get them to go. And so I just also wanted to clarify. So if the program itself, if that's like if reintegration is a part of what we do as a program, then
Mhm.
it does not have to be agreed upon by all those people who are invited. It's only when it's not, like if it's, can you clarify that piece, please?
Yes, I clarified that. But voluntary, we know that,
Right.
we
I
don't
probably
force
should have
people to be in
started
a
there. My
circle.
bad.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're good. Yeah. But if this is the way it's going to be as we begin to reintegrate young people back into the learning environment,
Hmm.
good as a staff that this is how it's going to be. It's understood as the young person, the parent or the families. This is the process. This is how we do, and we sit in this space to talk about how we can support.
Hmm.
When we think about sitting in circle for, to repair harm, or sitting in circle to address a problem, or just a community building circle, of course you want to set people up, open to come. But when we talk about reintegrating from, having into the school because of an incident that took place at their base school, then this is the process that we use, and this is how we do it. And it becomes what we do as a school.
Yes.
And
Okay.
yeah,
Nope, I got it.
um,
Now I just want to make sure I'm making sure that I'm still telling people the right thing. That I'm like I got
mhm,
it. So one of the things you said earlier, you mentioned trauma. Like just
mhm.
not not well that, and then I just it was something else you said, and I was like, that's a good way to talk about mental health. How do you feel? Because I definitely feel that restorative practices, restorative justice can be beneficial when it comes to, because holding things in isn't good. I mean, that's been proven, right? There's been
Mhm.
plenty of studies about how that affects stress, or how it can affect physical, things as well in your body, because you didn't express whatever, I would say, in the appropriate manner. 'Cause a lot of people express, but not necessarily appropriate. How do you see, or do you see a correlation between restorative practice or restorative justice and the positive effects of mental health?
Lisa, thank you for asking that question, because practices begins with self.
Hmm.
And I know that as it was introduced, into schools, organizations, it was about, what you do and the processes. But it really begins, and they talk about, building relationships, so on and so forth. But a lot of what's left out is that this restorative work that we do,
Hmm.
it begins with your relationship with yourself. Every facet of how we show up. is important. And when you are not balanced, then your mental health can take on that imbalance.
Mhm.
So when you're restorative with yourself, relationship with myself, am I taking care of myself? Do I honor myself? That I have gifts that I bring to the world? Do I believe that I am good, that I am powerful? I believe that I need to practice on being the best that I can be every single day.
Mhm.
And that, those questions to yourself allows you to see where the scales may be unbalanced. You know, I work all, I don't have time to spend with my friends because we need connections with our friends.
Right.
So, what are you going to do to that part of yourself? Because mental health, and you can correct me if if I'm incorrect, but mental health is about every part of us, physical,
Mhm. Mhm.
mental, emotional, spiritual, all of that. Even
Right.
even our social, the social
Mhm.
parts of us. When those are in balance, our mental health, is what I would say in quotation marks. But when
Right.
one of those parts of ourselves become unbalanced or not nourished, then that's when that, I don't want to say negative self, but that's when that more challenging self starts to show up in our relationships with ourselves and in our relationships with others.
Right. Mhm.
I
I
know,
would agree.
yeah, hungry. Oh, look, I'm gonna use the word hangry. Think about when you're
Mhm.
hangry and
Mhm.
folks want to come talk to you, and then you're trying to get to your lunch. Look, I can't talk right now. Just that other person comes out, right? Because your
Absolutely.
physical health is not being taken care of,
Right.
you know. And if that's constant, 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 then your mental health is going to be impacted because it's all connected.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. I agree. I think that that's, I think you worded that just fine.
Oh, well, thank
Just
you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Lisa.
you're welcome. Is there anything about this practice that you wanted to say that maybe you never actually said, or something that you think is super, super important that anybody listening, because we do pre-record this, but by the time this does air, um, we will have listeners. So is there anything that's just like super on your heart or your mind that you really want to express about restorative justice or restorative practice?
Restorative justice is about healing. And it's about healing those parts of you that have been calloused as a result of
Mhm.
how the world has shown up for us.
Okay. Mhm.
And when we believe that restorative practice is really how we are with one another instead of what we
Mhm.
quote unquote do,
Okay.
is when the real healing can take place.
Okay.
So that I think is what I would like to know, that it's really about healing.
Mhm.
And we start with ourselves first.
That's true. That's true. So what's next for you, Miss Mayor? What are you doing in the restorative world? I know a lot, but
Oh, Lisa, I've been really dallying with transformative justice
Okay.
because I hear a lot of my mentors, and I have tons and tons of mentors, but I've been listening to a lot about this word restorative talks about we're restoring something. But what
Mhm.
happens when that something is something, when that's in place from the beginning?
Okay.
So looking at how do we transform our space where they can become spaces of healing, become spaces of inclusion, become spaces of love. So when harm or conflict does happen, go into the restorative process. So I'm trying to delve deep into the transformative justice and
Mm-hmm.
how, how can I make an impact in our communities in a transformative way? So that hopefully will seep education realm as well. So that's what I'm starting to kind of get into a little bit. And that's tough because when we talk about transforming communities, it it takes a lot of grassroots. It becomes very political, and that is sometimes when you feel a little defeated,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to change legislation, to change laws, to change protocol. That takes a lot of work. And I'm at the point
Right.
of my life where I'm about ready to relax on the beach and, and look back
You're
on my
relaxing with the
educational
laptop or
days.
something. You don't have laptop. I don't think you not ever doing this type of work. I really don't. I mean, it's like embedded in you. County is blessed to have an individual such as yourself. Um, to fight, this fight because it is a fight, whether you would call it that or not. I have
Mm-hmm,
seen things over the years. It's a fight, but it's also such a blessing when the light bulb goes off and they get it,
mm-hmm.
and you're like, and they're like, oh, I understand why this should happen this way, or why this could be beneficial. Just having the knowledge, and you also said the mindset of one do it because a lot of people get trained and they still don't really care
Mm-hmm.
to change. Um, I want to get trained and apply whatever I'm learning. So I'm looking forward to the Restorative Justice and Education Conference. And thankful
Yes.
that the fee was taken care of by you all because I wouldn't have been able to go just because of other obligations and financial obligations and things. And so I'm grateful for that opportunity. So thanks again. But
Oh, yes, you are welcome. That's one thing I wanted for in the capacity that you serve in at your school was to have the opportunity to hear this information from other people. Because I'm
Mhm,
always here, I'm always in your ear. But I want
right,
you to hear from other people who are living it as well. You know,
yes,
uh,
yeah,
to see that we're not dealing with challenges. You
true.
know, even the quote unquote experts, gurus that I've been in this space, they still, are working through their challenges with trying to transform and restore space.
That gives me hope too, because I didn't even realize it was 10 years. I was like, okay, like I'm not that far. I'm not nowhere close to you,
Hmm.
but I'm not that far. So maybe by the time I get 10 years into it, I'll be like, doing some of the great things, transforming, whatever space I'm in. Because I'm going to take this, with me wherever I go,
Hmm.
wherever. I mean, my personal being, not necessarily talking about even just jobs, but just I just
Hmm.
see the importance of it, even in family meetings or having a talking piece so important. Like that one thing can be so easy, even if it's not a full circle. Just taking some things from it. Um,
Hmm.
some people don't know how to not say anything when they're in a group and they're upset and they just want I've been people. That
Yeah.
was me, you know what I mean? But I do know how to sit still and not say something as well and listen to what you're saying. It really if I want to. Because that's what it really is your choice, whether you want to participate in it or not.
Hmm.
But I feel like when you do participate actively, it just has such a better outcome um, because you get to hear where people are coming from, and you might not have had that opportunity if you didn't take the time to sit down and actually listen. So,
Hmm. Yeah,
it,
Lisa,
it,
think about you and I think about how this work will further your aspirations in the work that you're doing, not in the work that you're doing in your professional life, so to speak, in the school system, but even outside with your knowledge around and how to be resilient through trauma and how to work through, mental health. I think work in restorative is gonna be part of you as you continue to move in news and branches of your personal life. So I just wanted to say that,
Well, I
I think that,
appreciate that.
yeah, this work that you branch off into your other, areas.
I definitely appreciate that, and I do
Mm-hmm.
plan
Oh,
on
yeah.
using it, for the rest of my life. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm grateful for the knowledge, the information, that I've been able to glean from it. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. So is there any way if people want to get in touch with you, is it like a way that they can contact you? Or just if they have questions about this or they want to learn more about restorative justice practices?
Yes, yes, yes. So my email is RLMCNAIR32 at Gmail. RL McNair 32 at Gmail. And of course, I'm on social media, Earthy Chick 2409. Oh, is it Earthy Chick 32? I can't remember my own account. But, and I'm also on Instagram, Restorative Spaces,
Oh,
Restorative under Spaces.
I
And
don't even know if I have these. I need to go follow you myself. I'm about to do it right now. So y'all make sure you all follow Robin McNair or send her an email if it's something that you wanted to ask her or to get involved, to learn more about this. I found you. So I am following you on there. And then yes, Earthy Chick 32. That's the other one. Are you able to hear me, Robin? I'm not sure if you're muted or not, but I see that you're still on the call. But I did want to say thank you for being a part of this, for participating, for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with our guests. We appreciate it. For those of you who want to get in touch with me, you can go to my website, lisalgilliam.com. Leave a message in the guest book. Let me know that you were there. Sign up for the list, the email list. If you want to, as you can see, I was disconnected. So I guess this platform now has a time frame that I wasn't aware of. There's been a few changes. But I just wanted to finish, saying, thanks again to Robin McNair. And also, if you do want to contact me, lisalgilliam.com, or you can visit me on social media or follow me on social media at One Singing Lady, and that is the number one SINGINGLADY on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. I hope that you will stay in touch. Let us know how this show blessed you. And please remember that the views of the guests, myself included, are our own views. Although I've been in different spaces or formerly as a counselor, I'm not speaking on this platform as such. So I just wanted to let you know that I thank you so much for tuning in. One Singing Lady out. Have a great day, everybody.